Hi, this is JP Morgan and
Lars Lindstrom.
And we're here with Trends from the Trenches. This is our February version Trends. You know how long we've been doing Trends now?
A year.
It has been a year. A little over.
A little over a year
now? A little over a year.
Oh my gosh.
A little over a year.
That's right, because we've done 2 Christmases now.
We have.
So yeah, so we're like a year, 3 months, something
yeah,
like that.
Year and several months. So
Oof.
We hope you're finding great information here, and we'll continue to do our best to bring you as much information as we can about things that are happening in the photo, video world. We got some great things to talk about today. I have a weird one I'm going to start off with today. Just because I'm wondering, what kind of a guy dedicates his life to finding old film and processing it? Even it sounds so cool. I'm going, how does this guy make a living? But Levi Betweiser is a man behind a thing called Rescue Film Project. So he goes around and he looks for unprocessed film. And then he goes into the lab.
35mm photography film.
A lot of it's 120.
Okay.
A lot of 120, black and white 120s, because he's looking back as far as he can. So he found a bunch of rolls of film. It's like 31 undeveloped rolls of film from the Second World War.
Wow.
He bought from a lot of times you buy this stuff from a container or, something they're selling.
Bin or
something. And
so I'll bet there is money in that actually, because this guy develops his film, and probably there are a lot of either private investors or museums that might be interested in some of the content.
Well, he owns it. He hit a jackpot. 31 rolls of film from World War II, and there's just some fabulous images there of just different places that went on through that entire war. So someone took pictures through that whole era of their life, World War II, and never processed them.
Wow.
It's like an assistant I had who had 30 rolls of film from their wedding.
Yeah.
They could never afford to process them. So once a year, they would process a roll of film from their wedding. So it's like their wedding just kept on giving for years and years.
Wow, that's hysterical.
It is hysterical.
The Rescue Film Project?
Rescue Film Project. So I think it's a cool thing he's doing. Levi, give us a shout out. Love to hear from you and just know kind of how you're surviving in that whole world.
Apparently it's working because
we're talking about
Kodak just announced a deal with the 6 major studios that they will continue to develop their film stocks for feature film.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they've figured out apparently the Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino and all those guys that were kind of involved with that We Keep Film project worked. So they're going to continue making film.
Very cool.
There were a few more films this year than I think last year that were shot on film.
So kind of going back that direction?
Yeah. I mean, I still don't really necessarily understand it, probably because I own an Alexa, and it's for me, I'm like, I've never shot anything on film in my life. This is like, I'm a digital guy, but.
Well, I've shot a lot of stuff. I've shot a lot of commercials on film.
I'll bet you have.
Major amount of commercials on film.
Yeah.
But
I guess.
I just soon hit myself in the head with a hammer and go back to shooting film. Quite frankly, I mean, it's so hard. And I don't know. Just don't get it.
It's expensive and hard and. Anyway.
But so they'll keep processing film until those guys die, and when Lars' generation takes over the world, there'll be no more.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Well, there's a couple things. Rode announced 3 new microphones. They've got a wireless microphone for about a $400 price range. And then instead of using the ultra high frequency mode, they're actually going with the 2.4 gigahertz system. And it's just a completely different set of frequencies, different system entirely. But the thing that I like about the microphone is that the transmitter talks to the receiver, and whenever there's a dropout, it'll automatically switch to a different frequency.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you don't have to go in and punch a different frequency on each the transmitter and receiver. So when I do events, man, I don't have the time. If I'm getting dropouts, I'm in a hotel and I'm like, oh, I'm not picking it up right.
Yeah.
I don't have the time to go up to the presenter and say, oh, excuse me, can I just
change that?
So I like the idea that it's changing automatically.
That's actually a great feature. That is awesome. A great feature.
Yeah. And the $400 price range. So apparently it doesn't have quite the range that the ultra high frequency system has.
Okay.
So that's probably why it comes in at about $200 and $300 cheaper than the other Sennheiser system. But this is Rode, so it's a different mic company entirely. But I'd be very curious when these come in to see how they sound. The other 2 microphones that they've announced are shotgun microphones, step up from the NTG 1 and 2. You've got the NTG 4 and 4 Plus. As far as quality goes, it is not better than the NTG 3. It's got a couple of new features. You've got a 10 decibel pad. You've got a roll-off at 80 hertz, 75 hertz. But then you also have a high-frequency boost. So it'll kind of boost the high frequencies if you want just a little bit more tonal range out of your vocal presence or something like that. The Plus has a built-in battery for phantom power that you can recharge with a USB cable, like in your car. You just plug it in on the go or something. To me, it didn't this made me a little bit nervous. I'd much rather just buy a pack of AA batteries and just switch it out on the run, but apparently there might be a market for it.
That's I don't know. I have that same feeling about rechargeable. When I bought my first Hasselblad, it was this super rechargeable battery you stick in there, and it was cool and all, but then everyone pretty quickly got those adapted to AA's.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, you're out shooting and the battery runs dead, you can't get recharged. You can have a whole box full of AA's, you just keep shoving them in, and so that whole world is interesting. So would you buy that over a Sennheiser?
I have to hear the quality.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet, so who would know? But
yeah, I love Rode microphones. I really do. I mean, just our last episode, we talked about what I would get if I were starting out for $1,000, and I would get that little $79 mic that plugs into your smartphone. It's called the SmartLav from Rode. $79, and the quality's awesome. It's got a beautiful sound.
You just put your iPhone in their pocket, and
yeah, it's great. So like when I am having dropouts in an event, I just plug it in, turn it on airplane mode, hit record, and I just drop it in their pocket. It's the same size as a receiver or transmitter. So I love it. So I like that quality. I'm hoping they got the same quality in this. I'd love to try it out and see what they got.
Well, we'll look forward to doing a review and talking about that in the future.
Yeah.
All right, I have this one. This is just, we've been talking about these. I've used so many different drives in my career, but I've never had any trouble with these Lacy drives. Never, ever. And this now is the new Thunderbolt drive. So it's a 2 terabyte Thunderbolt drive, plugs into your computer. You gotta love it. And so Lacy drive. Great. I think there's 2 terabytes. The other thing about them that's interesting is they do have a RAID system in them. You can do a RAID 0 or a RAID 1. For a 2 terabyte drive, to have a RAID 1 system where you can back things up on it, I think it's absolutely worth it. So I think it's a great deal.
That's awesome. So, there's a follow focus that was funded by a Kickstarter project. I think it's from a company called Motion Dogs, and it's a wireless follow focus system that is affordable. Finally.
So that's been forever.
So I've got this big Steadicam rig, and I'm going, okay, I got to go buy a follow focus. So I'm looking at the cheapest one for me is the Red Rock Micro, which is still $2,200 or $2,400. I mean, that's not affordable for, it's like
for one aspect, for one piece of equipment on your.
And so Motion Dogs has this follow focus starting at $400.
No.
Yes, $400. So I had to buy one because I was just going, is this for real? So the one I needed was the Cinema one, where it actually has a gear, and that one was $600.
Okay.
So $600 though, and it's got a battery pack that you can do, or you can do a for my Alexa to this thing is a Limo 2-pin 12-volt cable, and it's ready to go, apparently. I mean, I'm still shipping to me right now.
So you haven't arrived yet. So when you get it here, next month we're going to bring it in and have you do a demonstration on how to use follow focus.
I'll bring the Alexa next month.
And how to do follow focus. And let's do that on the Lexus, and let's also do the Mark III, and let's use the follow focus on both of them, see how it works.
That
would be a great how-to. I'd love it.
So if it works for $600 and it's responsive enough, then we've got something special.
Yeah, fabulous. So here's an item. I think it's an item that may have been around for a week or two, but worth talking about. Okay. Sports Illustrated, across the board, let go all of their photographers.
What?
Every single one of them. They let them go. And everyone's going, exactly, what? I mean, supposedly Sports Illustrated is like the flagship of sports photography, and at least a magazine that had that kind of hold on the industry. And unfortunately, they let everybody go.
Why? Is the thought that you've got enough photographers on the field that you can buy images at a cheaper rate?
I think they're going to go to a freelance mode, where they're hiring freelance. But to me, it indicates exactly what all magazines are going through, and that is that they can't sustain. They can't keep that many people on the staff. You're not getting enough buying power. I mean, people get online and look at stuff, and I mean, they're watching the games my son-in-law has a feed that he gets updates on the games as they're being played,
Right.
And so
you don't need ESPN, you don't need any fun fancy stuff. You're right. I mean, Google's got it right at the top. You just hit refresh, and I know what the score is. I mean, you can know what the play-by-play is.
Play-by-play.
It's crazy.
So I think magazines are hurting. They just are. It's just not a format that people are gravitating to anymore.
Yeah.
And so,
you can't possibly have a turnaround fast enough anymore.
how can you get something printed and get it out there?
A game happens, and even if the magazine goes, it happened, print, sell, and they get everything out to in their trucks, and then they drive to the distributors. It's still, you got a 2 or 3 day turnaround, and by that time, people are on to the next big thing, you know?
Way onto it. Whereas you got a photographer sitting on the field who shoots and wirelessly transfers images, and they're on the internet within seconds. You know, so there's the competition.
Different time.
So the only thing that's keeping Sports Illustrated alive is the swimsuit edition. Other than that, they're in trouble.
Oh boy.
I mean, I'm not saying they're in trouble. I don't know. Maybe they're not in trouble. But when you let all your photographers go, sounds like trouble to me.
Something's going on.
Any other news or
I don't
things
think
that
so.
are interesting to you today?
No. I recently saw a review about the Canon C100 Mark II
Oh yeah, the
versus
C100.
the C100 Mark I. The very first thing I noticed in a comparison was how much warmer the sensor was on the first version
Then the second?
than the second. It was a very warm sensor.
The first one was a warm sensor.
Yeah,
So you're saying they've really cooled the sensor off?
cooled it off. It's very.
What's the reason?
I don't know. So I don't know if it's more accurate or less accurate. I don't know. The test I did see, they were shooting water, and so with water you do want more of a blue kind of a tone. So to me it looked like the Mark II was prettier, and then they zoomed in and I was looking at clarity and I was going, I don't see a difference. I just don't see it. So I mean there are some really.
But it goes to 11.
It goes to 11. There are some cool things. You know, like the slow motion feature is of course wonderful, and you need it. You know, at this stage. But for me, you know, like my C100s right now are worth $3,500.
Is that it? They dropped to $3,500.
$3,500, yeah. And it's just not worth an extra $2,000 for me to step up to the Mark II. That's the issue.
What are you going to gain in that? And I always say this, Lars and I have had this conversation. Yeah. How much more money is this going to make you?
None. That's the thing. It's cool to have a camera that has 60 frames. That's what I have my A7S for. And it does great. It does a great job. There are things I wish it did that the C100 does, like built-in ND filters or XLRs. But the fact is, it does a great job. It does 60 frames. It looks good. My clients don't care.
No, they don't care. They're never going to notice it. It's not something that's going to matter at all. It just isn't. Yeah. So, I mean, that's really the point. I guess if you're jumping into the market, you never bought one.
Yeah.
And you would probably buy the new one.
Buy the new one. It's great.
Yeah. But if in the market, you've already got one or two of them, it's just crazy. I mean, this is the thing about cameras. They become like this, like changing your socks. Like you got to have a new one every week.
It's consumer nation.
It is.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I just don't need it, and I'm gonna resist the urge. If I buy a new camera, it's gonna be the FF7 from Sony.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Does internal 4K? Come on. 180 frames a second at 1080p internally? Come on.
FS7?
Yeah.
You already have one.
No, not the AS7. The FS7. It's still an $8,000 price tag, but it's that, you know, more shoulder kind of a camera, but built-in ND filters and all sorts of crazy internal recording modes.
So you're back into that mode of just the heavy-duty.
Yeah, it's more of
dedicated to video camera.
Dedicated to video camera.
Yeah,
absolutely. But like I said, I'm very happy with my cameras right now. And if I'm gonna step up, you know, it's either shoot something nice and small on my C100 because I like how compact it can get, or shoot on the Alexa. Yeah. You know, so for me it's, I don't know, the FS7. It does have its benefits, but at the same time, if I'm gonna step up to any kind of a game, it's not worth it for me.
Yeah. So that wraps up our views of things here in early February.
We did it.
Now, if you want to see this entire show, go to our website. We have all the segments tied together there, so it's about an hour long. On the YouTube channel, we're going to have these segments come out 1 week at a time for different segments. But if you want to see the whole show right now, go to theslantlens.com. You'll see the whole show tied together.
And the podcast. Is the whole podcast online? The whole
podcast, the entire show goes up at the same time this goes up. So.
Okay. I'm Robert Siegel from NPR. This is All Lenses Considered. Go download the podcast. It's fun.